Hi, welcome to another Axopar how-to video. In this short video we're going to talk about the engine cooling system and how to flush it when you get back from a trip. So on this engine here you'll see that it's already running and there's what we refer to as a telltale, which is a small stream of water coming out. That tells you that the impeller inside the lower unit is spinning and it's cooling the engine block with salt water at the moment, and then it's ejecting it out through the back of the exhaust where the propeller is, and also through a few other passages like this telltale right here. The reason it's so important that we flush the engine afterwards is because we are immersed in salt water in this particular application. If all you do is freshwater applications, then flushing it after use is not required. I'm simply referring to what should be done by the engine manufacturer's recommendations for salt water immersed engines. So come with me and I'll show you all about it. Okay, so here we are, crouched down right next to this engine. If you have an Axopar, you're going to have one of two different generations of engines. Behind me is the newer generation. These are known as the V6 or V8 Verados, depending on which model you have. The previous generation Axopars from previous model years, before these were released, they were equipped with L6 Verados, which are essentially a flat stacked L as in like in a line, whereas this one, the cylinders are in a V. But for all intents and purposes, the cooling circuits and what must be done with flushing is really the same process. There's a slight tweak to the L6 Verados, and we'll talk about that in a little bit later on in the video. But for right now, I want to talk about why the engine is cooling the way it's cooling. So I mentioned earlier in the introduction that there is an impeller, which is basically a spinning wheel that spins with the RPM or the rotation of the shaft that's driven by the motor. It pulls water from the ocean or the lake, wherever you are, but we're really focusing on ocean water here, or salt water. It pulls it up and it pumps it around the engine block through water galleries or cooling galleries, and then it ejects it out with the exhaust and also through a few holes like this. It is used to cool things like fuel as well as the engine block, but the reason we need to flush it after we're done with it is that salt crystals and salt particles over time are left inside the engine block and all the cooling passages, and they can A, clog things up over long periods of time, and B, cause unnecessary corrosion. So that is why we want to make it a good habit, and it is a manufacturer's recommendations to flush the water out of the cooling passages after you've finished it. To do that, what we're going to need to do is shut the engine down so the telltale will disappear and the impeller will stop spinning, and then we'll plug in a hose and we'll show you how to do the flushing sequence. Okay, so on the port side of the engine, right here, usually located very close to the trim switch here, is the flushing port. You'll notice it's got this fin in the middle. You simply grab and twist and then you pull out. Sometimes they are a little sticky from the factory. We are working with mercury on that. We would like to see them a little bit easier to remove. So I'm just going to grab a tool off camera and quickly grab it and pop it out, and then I'll show you what it looks like on the inside. Okay, so after we pull out this flushing port cap, you can see that what we have here is a captive spinnable garden hose fitting. This really is just a standard garden hose connector, 3/4 inch standard thread. You see there's an O-ring sealing on the seal on the inside there, or a sealing washer. So all you need to do is just take a garden hose that's hooked up to a fresh water source, plug it in here and turn it on. I'll be back in a minute with a garden hose. Okay, so I have my garden hose, as I said, standard garden hose. Plug this right in here, hold the garden hose steady and twist this one. You don't need to tighten it much, just snug so it doesn't leak. And then back to the faucet and we turn it on and we let it run through the block. Okay, so as you can see, water is now flowing through this engine block and coming out that hole right there. That means all the salt water that's in there is being flushed away and it's coming out through here. So you want to leave this running for around 5 minutes after each use in salt water, and that'll get most of the salt water out from inside the engine block. So we have two engines here, which means we need to do it twice. After 5 minutes is up, I'll turn this one off and I'll switch it over. Port side done. Switching to starboard side. Okay, time to turn the water on again and do the starboard engine. Okay, so I've now successfully flushed both the port and the starboard engine. I've been to the faucet and turned the tap off, so no water is rolling out the starboard side either. I can now disconnect the garden hose, and that is the flushing sequence essentially complete. We just put the caps back in place and we should be good. Don't forget to put those caps back in because it does stop salt water and wash and prop wash and things rolling back inside that engine. So you want to make sure that is sealed up and it's totally watertight so no water intrusion occurs in the future. However, I do want to mention one more thing. We have an extra style points option, and that is using some sort of a splitter and also some quick connect devices. We sell these things, shameless plug, but they are really cool and they make this process a lot simpler and easier and dare I say enjoyable. So I'll disconnect this hose and I'll show you this flushing kit that we sell, and hopefully this will be an easier option to flush your engines. Okay, so here's the flushing kit all laid out in its individual components. I'm going to build it for you on camera so you can see how it all works. This isn't the only flushing kit that is available. You can build your own Y, which is basically all we're doing. We're just building a Y with lots of quick connect fittings, so it's literally click, 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 and then we're all good. So why we like this system and why we've chosen to support it is because these components right here, these actually replace the flushing port caps that are on the engines themselves. So you take those out and then you permanently install this on the side of the engine, and it has a little cap just like that, and that's just how the engine stays. We come along and we pop this off, and then we click our connector up to this, and then after that we're good to start flushing. Okay, so I mentioned this was a Y, as in the letter Y, so we can do two engines at the same time. So this is basically the hub, and there's little taps on here as well, or little shut-offs. So that is water flowing, that is water not flowing. So you can actually turn your faucet or your tap on ahead of time and take this all the way to the boat, and you're not getting water all over the place. That's what's nice about this particular system here. Some Ys will have these shut-offs and some will not. Obviously having them is better than not having them, but if you don't have them, no sweat. You can still flush two engines at once. You may just get a little bit of water everywhere if you turn them on ahead of time. Or, of course, you could always hook the thing up first and then go turn the water on. Totally up to you. I digress. Let's build this thing. So here is our hose, right? This is just the one that's plugged into our dock box. So what we want to do is we want to put this component here on the end, and this will permanently stay connected. This is simply just a standard push to connect, like a gardenia fitting. It just goes right in there. So connections like this can push to connect and go straight into them, right? So that stays on there forever, and that'll just be a permanent thing. Okay, so we put that aside, and then we go back to our Y adapter in the middle here. So we want to put this male adapter here on there, right? And then once we have this, we want to go ahead and grab the female side of one of these hose bibs. We want to put this here. There's one, and grab another one here. Okay, so once we have those connected, we have our Y adapter, and you can see we can do two engines at once like this. We put that down, and then on the end here, we want to put another quick to connect on this one, and this will stay permanently attached as well. One there, and then one here. Okay, and then this can be connected or not, like it's up to you. But this is basically what you're left with. You're left with this system right here, and you can literally just go straight up to your boat and click these straight in place. So the last thing left to do is to remove the factory shutoffs, and we'll put these in place instead. Okay, so here's the original flushing port. As you know, when you're putting it back together, in a normal situation where you're not installing an aftermarket component like this, you can just pop that back in there, and it goes in and it'll click close, right, like that. However, what we're going to do is we're actually going to remove this component. So I'm just temporarily installing it on this boat, but if you were doing it yourself, you could certainly go ahead and just snip this little piece of plastic so you remove the factory one. But I'm not going to do that right now. I'm just going to leave that connected because I'm going to put it back later. So here is the component, the flush M that we were talking about earlier, and that simply just threads directly into this garden hose fitting. Okay, and then from here we will need to, we will need to remove this just so we can install it for you. So okay, just going to remove these components for now. As I said, I need to tuck this back inside so it doesn't get in the way. Okay, so now I'm ready to insert this into the hole. Okay, now that it's there, I go ahead and I get myself a crescent wrench and I set it to the right size. There's some spanner flats or wrench flats on the side of this thing, and all we need to do is just give it a small turn. And there you go. So that's now perfectly locked in place. It's very tight. And then we just pop this thing on top, and then that's it closed, right? So that's how it would be normally when you're not using it. And then when you want to flush your engine, you just pop it straight in there. Notice that there's this indent in here. For freezing climates like this one, we're in Vancouver, we do freeze over the winter here. It is encouraged that you punch that out so there is a hole. So if there's any water inside of here, it does have a place to escape. I'm not going to do it to this particular one right now, but you would do that if you're doing a permanent installation on an engine that is in a climate that has the potential to freeze over the winter time. Okay, so I'm going to do the other engine on the port side, and then I'm going to go get the flushing rig and I'm going to hook it up and show you how to do it. Okay, so the dual flushing rig is all hooked up and ready to go. I've already turned it on at the faucet, and here it is right here. So at this stage, whoops, all I need to do is just pop this off, click that on, pop this off, click that on, 1, 2. And we're now flushing the engines. Thank you for joining us on this short Axopar how-to video on how to flush your engines. Thanks for all your support during this video series. We have got lots of great feedback from you guys and we really appreciate it. If you want to leave a comment down below, we'll be sure to get back to you. And if you like this video, be sure to share it with your friends. And you can also follow and subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icons for notifications. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks.